Budget Committee and Council. We are now joined by our Public Defender, Dawn Diener. Dawn, will you introduce those with you?
Am I on?
Yes.
There we go. Okay. To my left is our Deputy Public Defender, Geraldine Manning, and to my right is Annette Crutchfield, our Administrative Services Manager. Thank you.
Our threshold question is, can you operate within the mayor's proposed budget?
We can.
And with that, as always, we would like to hear all the good work that your folks are doing and what you perceive to be any needs.
Thank you very much, Chairman Stein, and good evening to all of you. I always try to start these hearings by publicly thanking the staff at our office. They are all extremely dedicated public servants. They work very hard, and I'm very proud of them. They do a great job, and frankly, they make me look better than I really am. And to that, I am very grateful. And this city should be really proud to have such a wonderful staff at its Public Defender Office. So for those of you who might not know, we at the Public Defender's Office, we are a law office that represents individuals who are accused of committing a crime or a delinquent act in Davidson County who cannot afford to hire a lawyer. We are also public servants who seek to improve the safety of our community, to bring fairness into our court system, and to make the ideal of equal justice for everyone a reality here in Nashville. This year, I would like to talk about two accomplishments that we've had, and I think two challenges that I see coming for the upcoming year. The first accomplishment that I have a lot of thanks to spread around for is a new space renovation that we've had at our offices at Parkway Towers. Our lease was up this year, and we've renegotiated a lease for the next 10 years. As part of that, we have just finished up. We moved in this past weekend to our last piece of renovated space, and it is, I can't even say, 1,000% improvement over where we were a year ago. It's a beautiful space. The renovations have been wonderful. Our lobby is 5 times larger than it was, which was a great need that we had, and a much more welcoming and inviting place for people who are coming in to see us. And there are plenty of thanks to go around for that. The finance department in its approval of our space and negotiating the lease, to ITS and General Services for helping us through the redesign and the computer updates and phone updates, to JIS for their help, and to the mayor's office, of course, for renewing the lease, allowing us to stay there, and providing us a great space to work for the next 10 years. The other accomplishment that I would talk about is our continued system-wide representation of individuals across Davidson County court systems, and that includes General Sessions Court, Juvenile Court, the appellate courts, including the Tennessee Court of Criminal Appeals and the Tennessee Supreme Court, as well as our state trial courts. To put it a little bit in perspective, our caseloads remain fairly consistent for the last few years. And what that means is that each day in Davidson County, our office is representing individuals in approximately 100 cases that are being closed every day. The raw numbers for last year was over 25,000 cases in which we represented individual defendants. And that's a lot of work. Where we are seeing a large increase in work is what we would call post-dispositional matters, so matters that are bringing people back into court after their case is closed, whether that be court cost issues or driver's license issues or things of that nature, probation violations, suspended sentence motions, and that's been about a 33% increase in the last year. So that is an increasing strain on us. And that leads me into the two challenges that I want to talk about that I think face us in the next year. Workload is a challenge for us. I've started talking about this because I think we have reached a critical point where the time is here for us to start trying to find ways to deal with our workload. The reality of it is representing somebody takes time. It takes time to talk to a person, talk to a client, to investigate a case, to research, to file motions, to go to court. It just takes time. And anybody who's ever hired a lawyer to do anything probably knows you get billed by the hour. So being a lawyer, providing legal services is about how much time it takes. And serving the public takes time. We get approximately 500 phone calls a day to our office. That's an average of 1 call a minute. This past Monday, we had over 60 people come to our office seeking services. So we have a lot of work going on in our office. And we are currently well far exceeding the caseloads that we should be handling. Now, I would say this. Metro is doing its part to help us with that workload. Metro every year contributes funding to our office that is either on par or exceeds what they are required to do. Where we have spent the last few years is really trying to focus on what we see as inadequate state funding. And we had some success there last year, but it was limited, and I think it's unrealistic to think we're going to get much farther with an increase in state funding that's significant in any way in the next several years. Again, to put things in perspective, given our workloads and the caseload standards that exist in Tennessee for public defenders, we are currently 22 lawyers short of where we should be for the number of cases we're handling. We're 8 investigators and 8 secretaries short of where we should be. And again, it's unrealistic to think that we're going to make that up anytime soon with additional state funding. And Metro is doing its part. This is not an issue of Metro not funding what it should be funding. And so I think that the message that I send is that something has to give. We cannot compromise the level of representation we give to our clients, and we can't come up with more money to pay for all of these lawyers that we need. And so what we're looking at is ways in which we can try to alleviate the burden on our office without placing an additional burden anywhere else in Metro. And one option for that is to start asking courts to appoint private lawyers to represent clients, represent more cases, which would shift the cost of that to the state. And I think that that is something we are going to continue exploring this year and may in fact start trying to do. And I just wanted to make this body aware of that as we proceed. It's not what we want to do. Our goal is to help as many people as we can. And we don't like having to say we can't represent a particular client or take on another case, but the reality of it is we have an obligation to make sure the clients we represent well. The other challenge that I think we're on the right road for that I would mention has to do with our best asset, which is our people. We are losing our attorneys at a rate much higher than we should. And I think a large part of that is salary-based. And I can say that because since the beginning of this fiscal year, we have lost 7 lawyers who have left the office. That's almost a 20% turnover rate. And 5 of those 7 lawyers have left to go do the same kind of work, but to just do the same kind of work in a place where they can make more money. I'm so pleased that the Civil Service Commission has approved the pay plan that was recommended by the administration. And I think that that is a real step in the right direction, particularly for our office. I understand this body will be considering that pay plan in the upcoming weeks. And I would point out that there were, in the course of the evaluation, the pay plan study, there were 24 positions across Metro that were identified as being paid more than 20% below market value. 2 of those 24 positions were our assistant public defender and associate public defender. And so I'm very grateful that this year's budget and the pay plan recommends some immediate ways to begin to address that. And I'm excited about what the future year will bring in terms of more permanent ways to try to address those issues. They are our people are our best asset, and we invest in them, and they get 3 to 4 years in, and they're leaving us. And I think we really need to do what we can to keep them with us. We hire great people, and we want to keep those great people. So those are the things that I would have to say today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all have.
Thank you. One of the things that's funded is a part-time immigration specialist, which you write will help you implement a much-needed immigration service plan. Could you explain what that's about for us? Absolutely.
In 2009, the United States Supreme Court issued a case called Padilla versus Kentucky. And basically what that case said is that criminal defense lawyers have a constitutional and ethical obligation to advise their clients regarding the immigration consequences of their criminal charges. So that's a lot of language. But what it really means is that if we are representing a client who is not a citizen of the United States, we are required to give them accurate legal advice about what consequences a conviction in their case might have for their status in the country. Could they be deported? Could they be made inadmissible if they left the country? They might not be able to get back in. And so it adds to the requirement of what legal advice we must give to clients. And none of our lawyers are experts in immigration law. They are experts in criminal defense law. We have over 40 lawyers at the office, and I think it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to try to train all of those lawyers to also become immigration attorneys. We have asked for an immigration specialist for the last few years. This year, in the past, we've asked for a full-time position. And so this year we made a request for a part-time position to try to evaluate what's the scope of that issue in our office, how many non-citizen clients are we representing, and what's the best, most efficient model that we can implement in our office to assist our non-citizen clients, and frankly, to make sure that we are fulfilling our ethical and constitutional obligation to give them good advice. If we don't give them good advice, the result is what happened in the Padilla case. The conviction for Mr. Padilla was reversed. His case was sent back, and that case then continued to take up resources in the court system in Kentucky. We don't want that to happen. We want to get it right the first time. So this money will allow us to implement a part-time position. It doesn't include benefits, to kind of assess the scope of what our issue is and figure out the best way for us to give advice to our non-citizen clients.
Councilwoman Langster.
Thank you. It's so good to see you, Public Defender Don Diener.
And you too.
What kind of salary are we talking about with no benefits for this person to work immigration?
I think the funding that we requested was $43,000, which would be for a half-time position.
Half-time position.
Right, so that would fund salary and the small amount of benefits or fringes that will go with a part-time position.
And let me ask you, how many cases a month, or would it be easier to tell me a year, that would require the services of someone to interpret or to correspond with?
Well, that's one of the things we're really trying to get a handle on. Data collection in our office, we do some things really well and we do other things not so well, primarily because we don't have someone dedicated to that role. We have a lot of lawyers on staff, and we have trouble tracking the issue of how many non-citizen clients are we representing. And so what we would look to this person to do in the first 6 months is to really try to get a good handle on how many non-citizen clients are we representing, and what types of charges are they facing. Are they routine, or are they something that would require more extensive consultation?
I imagine your DUI cases, you come across a lot of immigrants.
Well, I don't know, honestly. I don't know that I would break it out in terms of different types of offenses. We have, the population of Nashville in terms of non-citizen clients who are living here, I really have no idea. And like I said, that's one of the challenges we have, is trying to get a handle on how many of our clients are not citizens.
Mr. Chairman, could I put that on the wish list?
It's already in the budget.
Okay.
It's in the mayor's proposal.
Okay, well, good. We need to keep it in there and watch very closely. And also, I'd like to ask you, private law firms, they have young interns, law school students in the office in the summertime, L1s, L2s, and
Yes,
L3. I've got my eye on a particular L2. Do you think one day you might be able to pay an intern a minimum salary?
Well, I can tell you this. There was a time in the life of our office when we did pay interns, summer interns. But as everybody knows, when 2008 came, we've all had to sort of scale back. And one of the things that we scaled back on were the paid intern positions. A lot of schools these days do offer stipends to law students who are going to go work in a public interest organization, and that's been a great help to us to make sure that we don't lose out on a pool of qualified interns. But for some schools that don't offer that, it is a hardship for those students.
Well, if you finish law school, we like to keep them here in Tennessee, especially in Davidson County. But I thank you for your good service and keep up the good work.
Thank you. We look forward to a particular 2L being in our office this summer.
Councilwoman Berry.
Thank you, Chairman. Hi, how are you? It's good to see you.
Yes.
I have a quick question, and it relates to the open positions. We just heard the district attorney talk about the fact that they had 11 positions, but they were frozen. It looks like you also have a significant number open as well, but those are actually real jobs that are still available. Is that correct?
They are real jobs, but they are not available. I would tell you, this is the time, as I've talked about, we had 7 lawyers leave this fiscal year. Graduating law students are about to come into the office.
So, but I mean, these are not frozen positions. These are actually positions that you are actively trying to fill.
Yes.
Even with the attrition of the 7 lawyers who left, these are still positions that are open and
Yes.
you're trying to fill.
I don't know the exact number. We may have 1 or 2 on our list of positions that are there but not funded, but we
Okay.
do not have a high number of positions that are just frozen and no money there.
Okay. And you mentioned that you've had this significant attrition, and we talked a little bit about the pay plan study. When you were doing your exit interviews, was it just pay that was the biggest concern?
For the most part, as I said, we've had 7 lawyers leave. 5 of them have remained in indigent defense.
Right.
And I would tell you a compelling story of the last lawyer to walk into my office was crying. She did not want to leave. She loved the work she was doing. She felt it was the best professional experience she'd had. She felt like she was doing the most to help people. But she needed to make more money to support her family. And she was going to go into a position where she was going to be making $30,000 a year more than what
Doing the same.
doing similar work. She would be in a federal position.
I see.
And we can't even begin to keep pace with federal positions. But at this point, given what's happened over the last 5 years, we have even fallen behind state assistant public defender positions and in an area where we used to be well ahead of them. And she's not the only one. I had another lawyer leave to go work at the post-conviction defender's office here in Tennessee. And within 8 months of leaving our office, she was making close to $15,000 more a year than she was making with us.
So it sounds like there's a significant gap there.
There is.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Claiborne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Ms. Denner, thank you for being here. I had a question and then just a comment based on what Council Lady said about interns. I know that, interns are folks that are out in the summer, especially they're looking for ways to bring in some extra dollars for their school, but there are, on occasion, people who are interested in interning just for the experience. So if there were somebody out there that would be interested in spending some time in the defender's office for the experience and for the resume benefit, would you be able to accommodate or entertain that?
Absolutely. We have 13 interns that are about to start at the office in the next few weeks. And every year we have a class of interns, and we're not paying any of them.
Okay, so you do that then, and
Yes.
and folks
They're
out there
great.
know that you can do that. They can do that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And they're a great resource for future recruiting.
Right.
So we value our internship program quite a bit. It is a hardship on students who do not have law schools that will fund
Right.
their public interest commitment and work.
Right. Well, that's good. That's good. When the DA was here, we had a discussion about the domestic violence program and the budget, and Mr. Riebling reminded us that there was over $1 million that was spread across various departments to bring that initiative up. So you're have listed here services that are being added as domestic violence services. How much of that $1 million are you getting, and what are those services? What do they entail?
We are budgeted for an increase of $77,300 related to domestic violence services. And of course, like the district attorney's budget, we have a small budget reduction we will also have to absorb, whether we do it there or somewhere else. I think at this point, we are still considering what is our best option for providing, for how we would use those funds. One option would be hiring an additional assistant public defender to staff the domestic violence dockets. Probably the place where we have the biggest workload crunch is in General Sessions Court, which is where those domestic violence dockets are running and where the bulk of those cases are handled. And so I think probably the most likely scenario would be adding an assistant public defender to be committed to working in that court. Other options for us would be to add a paralegal or a social worker or an investigator in our General Sessions team to devote themselves to working on the domestic violence cases and clients who we represent.
Good, thank you. Councilwoman Johnson.
Thank you, Chair Stein. Thank you, Don, for all of the incredible work you and your office are doing, especially within the community. I just had a kind of an odd question because I was looking over the number of minority employees and how each of the departments broke out the classifications, et cetera. Do you in your office have a position for a special projects manager?
No.
Okay. Is there anybody within your office that is not an attorney, that is a minority, that is working like on projects or special projects or administrative type services?
I think the reality is we don't have anybody in our office who sort of just works on special projects. I would love to have that person because I think one of the things that we need to improve upon is our community outreach and our public relations and coordinating the types of community events that we do. We have social workers at the office. We have, in our adult division, we have 3 now, and one of those individuals is a minority. She's an African-American woman. But in terms of just administrative working on special projects, we don't even have that position. I'd love to have it. But it's not, as we look at what our top priorities are, I think this year that didn't make it into the list.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Dawn, thank you very much. Thank you for all your good work.
Thank you.
Chief, come on down.